All right, and we are back. 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 Welcome. All right, and we are back. And today we're back with another reaction video. And this one's a little bit different because this one I actually did live a few days ago. If you were there, then you got to witness it all live and go down. But if not, then this is our, just the video coming back up for you guys who didn't see the video. Again, you guys, I'm going to start doing live streams more often. Catch the live streams. I'm thinking of doing them on Fridays, maybe Saturdays. So you guys let me know in the comments below how you feel about this. But we are back with Alien Biographies number 11. Sorry, what am I talking about? Alien Biospheres number 11. You would think I would get this right, but hey, welcome to the channel. But yeah, Alien Biospheres by our good buddy Biblaridion. Again, I don't know how to say his name, and you guys are gonna keep commenting down below. I don't know if it's helping for real. I'm gonna go with what I feel more comfortable with, and that is it. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you missed it, this is episode 11. Make sure you guys are hit that like button, just comment down below, you subscribe, and while you're doing that, more importantly, make sure you subscribe to Biblaridion. He's making this incredible content. We gotta support him. Link will be in the description below. So go to Biblaridion, subscribe to him, let him know I sent you there. Tell him, hey, the best reaction YouTuber ever just sent me to your channel. I had to subscribe. So yeah, guys, with that being said, do want to bring this up, this one last thing up. I almost never bring it up in videos, so I do want to bring it up now. That is, if you guys don't like, comment, and subscribe, more importantly, subscribe, YouTube will come through that door right over there, and they will. Alien Biospheres number 11, Islands.
This video is brought to you by Campfire Technology. Campfire Blaze is a browser-based application packed with tools to help you exhaustively catalog all of your world building and storytelling in one place. The interface is both very easy to use and incredible.
Make sure y'all get Campfire Blaze. It really seems like a really good tool, especially if you're doing things like creating a story. You're over here being a story maker. You need things to make your story. Well, guess what? Now you got this. You're playing some D&D. Now you got this to play some D&D with. Glorious days.
Incredibly comprehensive, with built-in sections for maps, timelines, cultures, species, languages, and narrative elements like characters, relationships, and story arcs. But you can also add additional pages, folders, articles, and panels to flesh out your project in as much detail as you want.
Sorry,
you also have the ability to customize each of your pages with their own themes and templates, and to link different pages together to keep all of your information cross-referenced. And you can even join different projects together as part of a shared universe. Blaze's free version already comes with the basic functions of all of these features, but if you want to add even more options, Blaze has an extremely flexible pricing scheme, letting you individually buy whichever modules you're interested in as either a subscription or a one-time purchase, or just unlock everything for only a few dollars a month.
Hey.
To sign up for Blaze or to learn more.
Hopefully he's still doing Blaze, content. We'll see. Hopefully, one day I'll make it to the end of this series and then maybe do another series from him. We'll see if he's still doing Blaze ads. If that way you guys can get the most recent deals he got.
Check out the link in the description. In the last episode, we saw how the eastern and western clades began to diverge from each other as a result of the separation of the two continents.
Yeah.
But as well as these continents, there are numerous other...
Look at this! Look at this, guys. When I make this video, maybe this should be the thumbnail, like right here. This right here might be a good thumbnail.
Land masses across the planet, each one representing a separate instance of allopatry, isolated from and unaffected by evolutionary developments that take place elsewhere in the world. Of particular relevance are islands, which differ from continents in several key aspects that have significant implications for the species that inhabit them. The defining characteristics of islands are their size and their isolation, both of which will affect the potential species richness the island can support.
True.
The larger the island is, the greater the number of species it can accommodate, and the closer it is to the mainland, the easier it will be for new species to migrate to it. But these same factors also exert unique pressures on the island's inhabitants, often resulting in highly unusual species and ecosystems in comparison to the mainland.
Oh, lock in. We about to learn some stuff. Yeah, lock in, everybody. Lock in right here in your brains. We about to learn some good stuff right now.
For our alien planet, there's no way we could realistically delineate the ecosystems of every single one of the thousands of islands across the ocean. But we can focus on a select few of them that best exemplify the effects of ecological isolation on the native species. Much of the time, islands will have once been part of the mainland before becoming separated by continental drift or rising sea levels.
Okay.
On our alien planet, many such islands are likely to form when the eastward and westward movement of the continents eventually grinds to a halt, at which point the coastal mountain ranges, no longer being sustained by tectonic activity, will diminish as they're eroded by wind and rain. And as both continents begin to drift south, the regions of northern tundra will be moved out of the Arctic Circle. Both of these factors will decrease the area available for the formation of glaciers, which may ultimately bring the Ice Age to an end, returning the world to a greenhouse state. This will have many effects on the flora and fauna of the mainland, which we'll follow up on in future episodes, but as this happens, the melting ice caps will cause a considerable rise in sea levels, trapping many species on the islands that form as the low-lying area.
Holy crap, I ain't gonna lie, I feel dumb right now. Guys, I'm not gonna lie, I feel a little dumb right now because I felt like there was gonna be like some type of shift or something, like some type of tectonic shift that like caused these islands to break apart. I didn't even think about just water levels just rising, creating natural islands within like, mountain ranges or like peaks of former mountains. Like this is actually this makes a lot more sense, honestly. This makes a lot of sense. The Earth is like all connected anyway. This planet's all connected. You know what? We are lock in, everybody. You know what? They were They were right. Lock in. We about to learn some stuff, everybody, right now. Lock in. I'm locked submerged. In right now.
Let's take a closer look at just one of these islands, a small landmass about 50 kilometers across just off the coast of the eastern continent that we'll call Isla Proxima.
Okay.
On islands like this, the native species will initially be more or less identical to those found on the nearby mainland, which in this case will include clades such as the titanopods, cryptodonts, and camptopods that live along the northern coast. But soon after they become stranded, these clades may undergo some rapid developments in response to their newfound isolation. The smaller a landmass is, the less food and space it will offer, and on an island as small as Isla Proxima, animals that require large amounts of resources may struggle. In particular, large predators often do poorly on islands, since they require extensive hunting grounds and sizable prey populations, which small islands are rarely able to support. On top of this, species that find themselves on island habitats have to contend with the founder effect, the reduction in genetic variation that arises from a new population being established by a small number of individuals, which results in a high degree of inbreeding and increases the risk of extinction. Predators typically live at much lower population densities than their prey, and the very few members of a given species that become stranded on newly formed islands may not be sufficient to form a stable breeding population. All of these factors mean that large predators are especially vulnerable to dying out in isolated habitats, and so are frequently absent on small islands, although there are some notable exceptions that we'll touch on later. Therefore, Isla Proxima may not be able to accommodate the cryptodonts and other large onocodonts, so these species may go extinct.
Yeah, but the birds, like any of the ones that can fly, I feel like the ones that can fly are really going to pop off in this one right here. They're going to have a good time.
On this island soon after the rising sea levels sever its connection to the mainland. While other large animals on Isla Proxima will likely face similar pressures, things will generally be easier for megafaunal herbivores like the titanopods, especially with the disappearance of the big predators, letting them browse on the island's vegetation without fear of attack. However, in comparison to the endless stretches of bountiful steppe and forests on the mainland, the tiny island offers a very limited supply of food, which the titanopods will have to adapt to if they're to survive. One of the most common evolutionary trends for island-dwelling animals is described by
Foster's rule, aka the island rule. Animals' body size will be proportional to the availability of local resources. Look at me reading. Oh my god, I can do it. That was the exception. That was the exception he meant. Flying predators can be erroneous on island. Oh yeah. I figured they were gonna be that. I figured they were gonna be the exception. Flying, like that one especially. It was close to the island. Like if you're gonna need food, you're either gonna go into the water, be one of those one of those creatures that just goes in and out of the water, or you're gonna like fly and go back to the mainland when you need more resources.
Foster's rule, which posits that species may undergo a change in body size to best suit the availability of resources in their environment. While this can theoretically apply to any habitat, the most obvious and dramatic examples of this phenomenon usually occur in isolated environments like islands, so much so that Foster's rule is sometimes simply called the island rule. Since smaller animals need less food to survive, large animals that end up on islands very often exhibit a significant...
Wait, y'all got animals in California over there? Like Santa Cruz? Wait, are these actual islands? I thought these were just cities. Is Santa Cruz like an island, or is this like some type of like, is this like not an 100% accurate map? I don't know. I feel like this is an accurate map. I'm not going to doubt his maps, but I didn't know these were islands here. I thought these were all like normal like coast, like cities that were just like on the coast. Crazy.
Reduction in body size in comparison to their mainland counterparts. This manifestation of Foster's rule is called insular dwarfism, and can be seen in bovids like the anoa or dwarf buffalo, in the dozens of unrelated species of dwarf elephants, and is even known to have happened among dinosaurs like Europasaurus and Magyarosaurus. Generally, the smaller the island is, the fewer resources will be available, and therefore the more extreme the effects of insular dwarfism will be. So on an island as small as Isla Proxima, the local titanopods may end up shrinking down to less than a quarter of the size of their relatives on the eastern continent. Since such a small island will only be able...
I ain't gonna lie, now they pet-sized. Now they're pet-sized. That's actually crazy. Message redacted. I don't know what that would have meant. What could have the redacted word have been? What could the redactive sentence have been? That's the live chat, ladies and gentlemen. If you're watching this later on, just know that you could have been watching this live with the live stream and the live chat. So maybe join next time. Who knows?
Able to maintain a very limited level of biodiversity, this clade will contain only a single species, which, to contrast them with their larger cousins, we'll call Nanopus proximensis. But while large animals...
Nanopus. I ain't gonna lie. Childish. Very childish.
Like these may respond to their isolation on Isla Proxima by getting smaller, somewhat...
small body needs less food. You are correct about that one. I ain't gonna lie.
Paradoxically, Foster's rule may also result in other animals evolving in the opposite direction. Living on a small, secluded island means there won't be much competition, which, along with a lack of large predators, will relieve a lot of evolutionary pressure for the inhabitants, particularly for animals that would otherwise need to remain small to help them hide or escape danger.
Okay.
This means that for small animals, islands may actually offer greater access to resources than the mainland.
True.
And therefore, in accordance with Foster's rule, they may undergo a change in body size, in this case resulting in insular gigantism, growing much larger than their continental relatives. On Earth...
So this is funny. The big animals get small, the small animals get big, and now everybody's a little medium, Now we got little fat little rats and fat birds that can't fly. I know about this bird. This one cannot fly. This bird can't fly. It's just, I'm pretty sure it weighs too much for its wings. And they just are on the ground all day. Crazy.
This is seen in numerous species like the Tenerife giant rat, the giant parrots of New Zealand like the kakapo, and the New Caledonian giant gecko, the largest living gecko species. On our alien planet, some of the most common and adaptable osteopods are the Eurychirids, which by this point have become a very successful and widespread group, with their endothermy letting them survive in a variety of climates, and their generalist diets helping them to take advantage of every available food source, giving rise to clades like the Lystrachirids in the deserts and the related Trypanochirids in the temperate steppes and woodlands. And being so prolific, it's more than likely that at least a few species will end up on Isla Proxima. The mainland varieties can vary in size from only about 20 centimeters to almost a meter, and are primarily small scavengers and generalist omnivores. But on Isla Proxima, once the onychodonts die out, not only will they be free to grow bigger, but also to move into the vacant predatory niches. Although their maximum size will still be constrained by the limited food and space on the island, they may still grow into some of the largest of all Eurychirids, going from generalist scavengers to dedicated predators. They may evolve to use their broad digging claws and strong forelimbs to grab prey and wrestle it to the ground, while their serrated pedipalps, once used for stripping meat from inside carcasses, may now adapt into sharp saw-like appendages to pierce their prey's hide and tear off chunks of flesh. Once again, due to the limited species richness the island can support, this clade will include only a handful of species, all of which will be united in a single genus that we'll call Teratochirus. But
monstrous hands. Okay, so part of me feels like I mean, no, you're right. They're all kind of, these guys specifically are part of that branch. Like, I want to see where the other ones of this, like some of the more like smaller spider ones and stuff, also come.
These won't be the only creatures to take advantage of the demise of the onychodonts. Ever since the onychodonts first evolved, they've dominated the niches of terrestrial hypercarnivores thanks to adaptations like their thermoregulation, centaurism, and cursoriality. Meanwhile, the other dromaeopods that lack these specializations have been on the decline for the last few tens of millions of years, and have been largely outcompeted in most open habitats, but a few of these more basal forms will still survive as small mesocarnivores in tropical latitudes. However, if any of these species end up on Isla Proxima, then once the onychodonts disappear, they'll experience a huge decrease in competitive pressures, and will now be free to exploit the macro-predatory niches they've been precluded from on the mainland, which may once again result in an instance of insular gigantism. This will likely bring them into competition with the Teratochirids, so the two clades may need to undergo some form of niche partitioning, which may involve specializing for different styles of hunting. Like most other basal dromaeopods, these forms may use their powerful back legs and great speed to chase down prey over short distances, making them much more able to tackle fast-running...
Holy crap, hold on now, Alien Biospheres. Hold on, buddy. You got animations? Hold on. Buddy just changed the game now.
Down prey over short distances, making them much...
Shout outs to his audience, brother. I'm telling you. This has got to be a great community to be a part of, because he's using your animations. Guys, send me animations. I'll use them too.
More able to tackle fast-running prey like the Camptopods, while the Eurychirids don't have the same adaptations for pursuit hunting, but will still be able to employ ambush tactics to hunt smaller or slower prey, and are adaptable enough to subsist on carrion and mixed vegetation if need be. Along with Nanopus and Teratochirus, these dromaeopods, which we'll place in the genus Romeliopus, will be some of the many clades on Isla Proxima whose evolution will be shaped by Foster's rule, resulting in substantially different ecosystems from those on the mainland in only a few million years following its separation. However, the longer an island remains isolated, the more divergent its ecosystems will become. On Earth, Madagascar has been separated from Africa for over 88 million years, and as a result, about 90% of all Madagascan plant and animal species are found nowhere else in the world. Our alien planet offers some even more extreme examples, with some landmasses, like many of the islands dotting the Southern Ocean, having been isolated since the invasion of land over 150 million years ago.
Oh wow.
And with such a long period of isolation, they'll be totally unlike any other environment on the planet. A key factor relating to this is that, unlike Isla Proxima, none of the mainland clades will have ever had any presence on these landmasses, since they only evolved after these islands were already separated. So everything that comes to live there will have had to disperse there from elsewhere. In the case of plants, most chemophytes reproduce by releasing their diaspores into the wind,
Yeah.
So while the early chemophytes were first spreading across the mainland, some of these diaspores may have been swept up by the winds of the massive storm systems that were common during this time, and, by sheer luck, may have been blown across the sea to some of these islands. Dispersing across such huge distances by accident will obviously be an extremely rare event, so these islands will initially be home to only a handful of plant species, but some chemophytes may be more likely to make the journey than others. Once the xylophytes evolve, most of them will still make use of wind dispersal like other plants, but in the swamps along the coasts of the old supercontinent, some plants may have evolved to take advantage of the plentiful rivers and floodwaters for dispersal. Once fertilized, their female gametangia may grow into bulbous pods that detach from the parent plant and drop into the water.
Drop off into the water. First of all, I was about to say that. Okay, I was about to say that. We're going to talk about rafting events. What? Oh, wait, hold on. I missed one. It's getting stranger. The longer an island is separated, the more unique the animals living on them. Yes, that is true. But yeah, I was going to call this, they're dropping off their seeds in the water,
floating downstream and eventually settling on a new stretch of riverbank. This same strategy is also used by plants on Earth like coconut palms, nickel nuts, and the looking glass tree, which produce buoyant structures called drift seeds, or drift fruit, that are adapted for being dispersed by water currents. Although these xylophytes will have initially evolved in coastal swamps, these drift fruit may serve as a pre-adaptation for colonizing islands, since they'll be able to cross stretches of water that would be virtually impossible to bridge using wind dispersal, with some drift seas on Earth known to ride the ocean currents for thousands of kilometers and to remain adrift for months at a time. If some of these xylophytes evolve similar specializations for oceanic dispersal, they may become some of the most common and successful plants in coastal and island habitats. On account of their buoyant drift fruit, we'll call these plants coelophytes. And fortunately for these coelophytes, the islands that they arrive on will not only be devoid of competition from other plant clades, but also of any of the mainland herbivores, and so act as a safe haven for them to diversify and flourish. But it will only be a matter of time before other colonists find their way here.
I do like this image right here, where it's like these two trees just looking up out in the sun. It actually looks like they're just having a really good moment right here. Like, this is like I imagine this is like a father and son, just like, son, look at the beauty of the world that we live before the other animals come to attack us. This is every day, just waking up, seeing this. This is coconuts.
But it will only be a matter of time before other colonists find their way here. Before the evolution of flight and semi-aquatic lifestyles, most animals will be confined to the supercontinent. But eventually, a very small minority of species might happen upon another form of oceanic dispersal. Rafting events occur when organisms are carried from one landmass to another by floating mats of vegetation and other debris. As improbable as this may seem, this has been directly, albeit very rarely, observed on Earth, such as how green iguanas have been recorded rafting over 100 kilometers between islands in the Caribbean.
What?
And the biogeography of some clades suggests that rafting events like these can even take place over distances of thousands of kilometers, which is thought to be how lemurs originally arrived on Madagascar.
Not gonna lie, guys, this monkey in the middle, this monkey in the center right here, something about its eyes, I don't trust this one. This is the most, out of these three, I trust this guy the least, and it might just be me.
And how the ancestors of New World monkeys and caviomorph rodents traveled from Africa to South America. Even though these events are extremely rare, over time spans of millions of years, they're bound to happen at some point.
True.
And even a single breeding pair reaching a new landmass may be enough to establish a population. The most likely animals to undergo rafting events are species that are small enough to have their weight supported by floating mats of plant matter, and are hardy enough to survive a journey that might take anywhere from several days to a few weeks. This being the case, the malacoforms seem like prime candidates.
I was just bringing up these guys. Like, I wonder what these guys are up to.
For rafting, since they're tiny enough to stay afloat on even the smallest piece of debris, including, for instance, the drift fruit of the coelophytes. Any malacoforms that infest the tissues of these fruit may be carried with them once they detach from the parent plant, serving as a perfect vessel to ferry them between islands and letting them spread relatively quickly among all the land masses that the coelophytes reach. On the other hand, rafting events involving larger animals will happen much less frequently, since they'll require much sturdier rafts such as mats of fallen branches, logs, and other driftwood, which aren't likely to form very often. Relating to what we mentioned at the beginning of this episode, the rate at which new species will...
Yeah, so the closer ones, high immigration, it's like closer and small. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, if it's close and large, high immigration. Far and large, moderate. Close and small, moderate. Close, small and far, nobody wants that. Nobody wants an island that's far away and it's small, okay? Size does matter sometimes,
Raft to a given island will be contingent on its size and its distance to the mainland. So land masses like those off the southwest coast of the supercontinent, which are relatively large and only a few hundred kilometers away, are likely to experience a relatively high rate of rafting events and so share many clades in common with the mainland, while more remote land masses may see only 1 or 2 rafting events throughout their existence, which will have some crucial implications for their biogeography. Long before the first osteopods, the lophostomes were already a well-established group, even including various megafaunal clades among their ranks. Along with the ubiquitous malacoforms, a few of these larger species might have also been rafted across the sea during this early period. Perhaps in one chance event, a few members of a small, adaptable species of the ancestral Desmostricans were sent on a voyage of over 2,000 kilometers to make landfall on the island off the supercontinent's southeastern coast, a landmass that we'll hereafter call Crescentia.
Okay.
If enough of them survive to overcome the founder effect and form a stable breeding population, then they'll find themselves in an ideal sanctuary, lacking any other animals beside the malacoforms they feed on. This will be especially fortunate for them considering that a few million years after this rafting event occurs, competition from the newly evolved osteopod clades will drive most of the older lophostome species to extinction, with the only lineage of Desmostricans that survive on the mainland descending from a clade of small malacivores. But on Crescentia, they'll be safely secluded from developments taking place on the supercontinent.
Oh my gosh, once again, look at these guys. Look at these guys enjoying their day. Oh, nothing bad's ever gonna happen to us. Oh, we're just having a good time here. Oh, the world's looking so great and wonderful today. Yeah, bro, I'm looking at it just like you. Look at us, 6 eyes, moving around, looking everywhere, being like, yo, look at the sunset. Let's scavenge for food. Such a beautiful day for these guys.
And thus they'll survive as the only representatives of an ancient branch of lophostomes that won't exist anywhere else in the world. These surviving species will represent what's known as a relict, the remnant of a population or clade that was once widespread but now retains only a fraction of its former range and diversity. An area or habitat that supports a relict is called a refugium, which islands frequently serve as, such as how the thylacines survived on the island of Tasmania up until the last century despite having died off on the Australian mainland thousands of years earlier, and how New Zealand is home to the tuatara, which, although it closely
basically a sanctuary. Yeah, you're right.
Resembles a lizard, is actually the only surviving species of Rhynchocephalian, an entirely separate clade of reptile that once had a global distribution before being largely wiped out along with the non-avian dinosaurs. Likewise, Crescentia will serve as a refugium for these relict Desmostricans, which will continue to thrive on the island even as the megafaunal lophostomes are replaced by the osteopods elsewhere in the world. We'll call their unique lineage the Notiforms. Once they fully colonize the island, the lack of competition will have several immediate effects. First of all, although their lack of an internal skeleton and the diminishing levels of atmospheric oxygen will still restrict them to only a dozen or so kilograms at the most, the abundance of food and the absence of any osteopods to compete with will once again result in insular gigantism, with many species growing much larger than the vast majority of the mainland lophostomes, much like how the lack of mammals in New Zealand has allowed the giant...
Guys, I'm trying not to be the person who says don't go to New Zealand, but then I gotta see stuff like this. How do I tell people, yeah, it's safe to go to New Zealand, and then there's stuff like this everywhere? Like, what? Make it make sense, ladies and gentlemen. How am I supposed to do it? Think about it.
Wetter to evolve into one of the largest insects.
I can't with a moral compass. I can't tell people to go to New Zealand when I know there's things like this out there. Come on.
On Earth. Another common occurrence among animals that migrate to isolated or uncolonized habitats is for them to undergo an adaptive radiation, rapidly diversifying into a multitude of different forms to fill all the unoccupied niches. And especially...
Hold on now. Never did you just say that. Never did you just say, this guy is harmless? Is that what you're talking about? Are you saying this guy is harmless? You know what? It's not harmless, because I would have a heart attack just seeing it. How is that harmless if it's giving me a heart attack? Can you explain that for me? How is it harmless if I am personally having a heart attack from seeing this thing? This thing jumps on me, I'm dying, okay? My heart, boom. The cartoons you see where the cartoon is like the soul comes out and he looks at the body, that's me. I'm looking at my body from the other side, looking at this thing, and this thing's looking at me like, whoa, you died? I'm harmless, buddy. And I'm over here like, wow, I'm just a spirit now, getting floated up into the sky. The gates are right there. Saint Michael is looking at me like, oh, whoa, you're a little early here, aren't you?
Another common occurrence among animals that migrate to isolated or uncolonized habitats is for them to undergo an adaptive radiation, rapidly diversifying into a multitude of different forms to fill all the unoccupied niches. An especially famous example of this is Darwin's finches, which all descend from a recent common...
Not his fault. Okay. You know what? It's not directly his fault. Indirectly, completely his fault, okay? Indirectly, his fault, 100%. Call it whatever animal crime you want to. I'm no animal crimeologist here. I just know a bug that would, freaking Darwin finches.
Ancestor that arrived on the Galapagos Islands within the last 2 to 3 million years that then promptly evolved into over a dozen different species. This effect will be particularly extreme on an island like Crescentia, since all the niches for animals larger than the malaciforms will be completely vacant when the notiforms first arrive, leaving almost the entire food web up for grabs. The original notiform species that first rafted to the island was a small generalist omnivore, a lifestyle that many subsequent notiforms may retain. But soon after they arrive, one branch may specialize for feeding on vegetation, evolving a large, powerful gut supported by bulky, weight-bearing legs and strong, compact mouthparts to masticate plant matter.
Hey, that sounds just like me for real. I ain't gonna lie. Hey, gotta get that strong gut there, buddy.
Being indiscriminate herbivores, they won't need the antennae-like sensory tentacles of the early notiforms to sift through the leaf litter, so these appendages may shrink to not interfere with feeding, and their banded shell may acquire a distinct saddle shape to let them angle their heads upward to reach for food. We'll call these herbivores Thyreostracans. Meanwhile, another group may specialize for carnivory, evolving into the island's first large predators. Like most lophostomes, the notiforms won't be very nimble animals, with their stubby, boneless limbs only letting them manage an awkward waddling gait. However, the Desmostracans are more maneuverable than most lophostomes thanks to their flexible banded shell, and reducing...
Okay, I remember these guys. They eventually had a adaptation where they could they're the ones who adapted to their shells actually broke into pieces, but end up having slits so they can kind of roll in a ball shape.
The shell even further will allow the muscles along their flank to contribute to locomotion, increasing their stride length by bending the body into an alternating S shape.
I'm not gonna lie, these things look disgusting now. This looks disgusting right now. If I see that thing on my gosh, I feel like it's gonna leave us a trail of slime.
This will make them some of the fastest of all land-dwelling lophostomes, which, along with other adaptations such as camouflage patterns to conceal them amid the undergrowth and sharp, toothy mouthparts to latch onto prey, will let them fill the majority of the carnivorous niches on Crescentia, from small, worm-like mesocarnivores to meter-long macropredators. Both the Thyreostracans and these predators, which we'll call campylospondyls, will continue to proliferate over tens of millions of years to exploit all the...
Not gonna lie, I feel like this... somebody could make a game based off of this series. Here's my pitch for the game. Guys, make sure commenters, make sure y'all copyright this next speech right here. I want to make sure nobody else gets steals my idea for this one. So let's go ahead and make sure y'all copyright that one. So here's the idea, guys. It's a one of those like survival games. You got to survive and like build, some type of like fort or something like that. Like you got to like be doing constant things to stay alive in this survival scenario. But there's all these crazy creatures around and stuff. Some of them you don't know which ones are good or which ones aren't. You don't know which ones are like herbivores or nothing like that. You're on a whole nother planet. You fall onto the planet. This is the planet that you're on. These are the creatures you got to live with. You got to survive, build. You can craft stuff eventually. There's going to be a whole crafting mechanic. Don't worry about that, people. We're gonna make sure you can craft stuff. But then maybe we'll have you like document the some of the aliens. Like, oh, this is for research. Basically, Ark Survival Evolved. Yes, this will be like Ark, but imagine Ark, but I've played it before. that would be this game. I've never played Ark. I've heard of it from people who like those type of games, but I will be honest, those are not my type of games. So even in the game that I'm pitching to you guys right now, I probably wouldn't play this game as much. I would play it to support Alien Biography or Biospheres. That's what I would say. Biblaridion, I want to support that guy. So I would buy the game. Would I play it a lot? I don't know. I can't say I wouldn't be. This wouldn't be like the game I play all the time. This ain't my Marvel Rivals, but it would be a game that I have on rotation and make sure to tell everybody else to get it because I support my boy. We all support Biblaridion around here, okay? That's the type of house we live in. We're in the Biblaridion supporting household, even if we don't say his name properly. Okay?
The niches Crescentia has to offer, resulting in ecosystems completely unlike anything on the mainland. However, over the 50 million years following their arrival on the island, the conditions may eventually come into place for another rafting event to occur.
Okay.
Perhaps this time, a handful of small arboreal platodonts will be cast out to sea within a tangle of fallen branches, brought by the currents to the shores of Crescentia. Even though by this point the island will have been thoroughly colonized and its ecosystems filled, the arrival of these platodonts will pose a significant threat for the notiforms. Because islands generally have lower levels of competition and predation than the mainland, newly introduced species can quickly become invasive and cause considerable ecological disruption, as seen in species like the brown tree snake in Guam, the common brush-tail possum in New Zealand, and the water hyacinth in Madagascar. In this case, these platodonts will present a new source of competition that the notiforms will have had no way of preparing for, and will have a huge competitive advantage due to their internal skeletons and active respiration, which will let them exploit niches that are inaccessible to the notiforms and allow them to undergo an adaptive radiation of their own, giving rise to a new lineage that we'll call the Xenodonts. Since they're already predominantly arboreal, the Xenodonts may quickly come to monopolize the niches in the treetops, feeding on leaves that the bulky Thyreostracans on the ground can't reach. And within the relative safety of the canopy, they can proliferate and evolve into larger forms. And following the changes in climate and atmospheric composition that take place during this period, the megafaunal notiforms will gradually begin losing ground, giving the Xenodonts the opportunity to take their place as Crescentia's dominant fauna. One of the Xenodonts' most distinct advantages will be their speed, as their skeleton and limb configuration will give them more efficient locomotion than even the Campylus spondles, which one clade may take advantage of to become fast, nimble predators. These forms may retain some arboreal behaviors, but may also exploit the relative lack of competition on the forest floor. And
I'm not gonna lie, I love this color. I love the coloring. I love the way that his hide looks with the stripes. The stripes around the like the legs and stuff around here. This is really getting me. I really like that.
Spend time hunting at ground level as well, with the hooked claws that originally evolved to help them climb trees, now letting them.
This image looks insane. This looks dark.
Latch onto and disembowel their prey. However, such large claws will be at risk of being worn down from abrasion against the ground, so they'll need to evolve some way of keeping them
Oh,
sharp.
like a retracting.
One solution is to keep the claw raised off the ground, like the foot claws of dromaeosaurids or the retractable claws seen in most varieties of cats, the Madagascan fossa, and the grey fox, all of which rely on their claws to both climb trees and to catch prey, and so keep them retracted when not in use to prevent unnecessary wear and tear. Alternatively, another option is knuckle walking, a fairly rare condition wherein the animal supports its weight on its knuckles, keeping the tips of the digits off the ground so they can be used for other purposes. Knuckle walking can be seen in semi-arboreal animals like chimpanzees and gorillas, which use their dexterous fingers for handling food and climbing, but it's also seen in animals that need to maintain long, sharp claws to help them feed, such as the giant anteater, which uses its huge claws to break open insect mounds.
I did not know this. I thought they just walked normal.
While the extinct calicotheres, which used their claws to reach for and pull down tree branches, even saw the parallel evolution of both knuckle walking and retractable claws. While the anatomy of the osteopod foot isn't exactly equivalent to that of vertebrates, these xenodonts will have inherited flexible ankle joints from their arboreal ancestors to wrap around and grip tree branches, so when they come down to the ground, they may walk on their wrists with their feet bent backwards, keeping the points of their claws.
I'm not gonna lie, I felt like we should have went through the retractable claw route. The knuckle walking is cool. Retractable claws are cooler.
Facing upward and away from the ground.
I'm gonna be that guy.
A trait for which we'll call them streptotarsons. Meanwhile, the relative lack of competition and the bounty of vegetation may encourage some other xenodonts to independently evolve a ground-dwelling lifestyle and adapt into dedicated herbivores. No longer needing to remain light enough to be supported by the tree branches, these herbivores can now afford to grow much larger, evolving into a clade of heavy-set browsers that fill similar niches to the megalobrachids on the mainland, and convergently evolving strong, robust mandibles with flattened teeth to crush and grind down plant material, and a large, multi-chambered foregut to maximize digestive efficiency. Unlike the megalobrachids though, their front walking legs, used by their arboreal ancestors to reach out for and to hook onto branches, may retain their large sickle-shaped claws to assist the pedipalps in reaching upward and pulling down foliage towards the mouth. Once again, these claws will need to be kept long for them to be effective in feeding, so
I ain't gonna lie, these pedipalps have been literally saving this creature's whole species since the beginning. Nah, this worker better for their this works better for their anatomy. Okay.
These animals will also need a way of preventing them from becoming worn down. But unlike the streptotarsons, which need to keep all of their claws sharp so they can be used for climbing trees, these exclusively ground-dwelling herbivores will only need to keep their feeding claws long, which provides an additional option beyond retractable claws and knuckle walking. In other episodes, we've seen centaurism evolve in both the onocodonts and the allobrachids, in both instances evolving as a means to allow the animal to run faster and more efficiently. But in this clade, centaurism may occur as a natural consequence of evolving a ground-dwelling lifestyle, as only the hind 3 pairs of legs evolve to bear the animal's weight, with the claws on these limbs becoming blunt and hoof-like, while their front limbs may become specialized for feeding by being held off the ground to stop their claws from scraping against the soil.
Okay.
This will make them vaguely analogous to animals like Therizinosaurus, which, thanks to its centaurism, could afford to evolve enormous rake-like...
Bro, what is this? Is this a Pokemon? Did the guy who made Pokemon make, this looks like what was that fire one? The fire fighting type? You guys know what I'm talking about. What's that? What is this Pokemon's name? Name that Pokemon. Wait, no. Who's that Pokemon? Dear. And then, editor, in the edit later, make sure you put that Pokemon in the edit. Just make it funny.
Feeding
editor.
claws to reach for vegetation. Due to this distinctive feeding arrangement, we'll call these xenodonts brachiocephalians. The brachiocephalians and streptotarsons will represent only
a plant-eating theropod dinosaur with 10-foot arms. Yes, that's what we were looking at before. Incredible,
Fraction of the
right?
diversity that the xenodonts will achieve over the tens of millions of years that they hold dominion over the Crescentian ecosystems, but even these creatures won't be able to maintain their
Gotta love it.
supremacy in the face of a rapidly changing climate. With the onset of the Ice Age, the landscape of Crescentia will change.
Claws at least a meter long. Guy, I'm sorry, I am in America, so you are gonna have to convert that. Meters, that feels long, but how many baseball bats is that long, you know? How many what's some American conversions? How many apple pies is that uh in a row? You gotta tell me. You got to give me an American conversion, you know? How many football fields long? how many basketballs on top of one another do I need to put to get that a meter, you know? Answer me that, chatter below, please.
Change drastically, with most of the lush jungles giving way to seasonal forests and tundra. This will be a huge challenge for the native species, as most animals on Crescentia won't have any form of thermoregulation.
3 to 5 feet long. Nice. I love it. See, this is what I'm talking about here. This is why we need more chatters like you. Because I was like, hey, can you convert that for me? Immediately converted it for me. That's what I'm talking about.
Making them very sensitive to cold temperatures. And with the scarcity of food brought on by the retreat of the tropical forests, only a small minority of Crescentia's former diversity will manage to survive. But on top of this, during the glacial periods, the stretch of sea between Crescentia and the eastern continent will shrink as the sea levels drop. And if the sea freezes over, it may be possible for animals to travel from one landmass to the other. Crossing a several 100-kilometer stretch of sea ice will be a hazardous and impractical journey for most animals, but a small number of migratory or wide-ranging species from the mainland might be able to trek across the ice and find their way to Crescentia. The most likely animals to make a journey like this are small, adaptable species that are able to withstand the cold, which on Earth include animals like the Arctic fox and the Falkland Islands wolf, both of which were able to cross the frozen seaways that formed during the last ice age to arrive on Iceland and the Falkland Islands respectively.
I ain't gonna lie, that's just something dogs would do. You know, you guys ever have dogs, you know? I bet if you just let a dog outside, it would find itself halfway across the world, you know, just off some like being a dog, you know. Real ones know, real dogs respect other real dogs, you know. Shout outs to both of these species of dogs. This second one looks a little extinct, but shout outs to it. The Falkland Islands, is that the island where like South America and like Britain had like a little mini war over? Like that little, it's like South, it's like in South America. It's like a South American island that like nobody really cares about. I think they had like a little spat about that in like World War II or around that era. But yeah, crazy. This was the island? Okay, I thought this was the right island.
And are both the only land mammals other than humans to ever inhabit their home islands. In this case, the alodonts living along the southern coast of the eastern continent are generalist enough to feed on whatever food they can find on the icy plains, and their endothermy will help them resist the cold once the ice age arrives, an advantage they may strengthen by evolving a shaggy coat of fur from the tiny setae that cover their bodies, a near-identical development to what occurred in the closely related thecopods, making the two clades appear very similar despite existing on opposite sides of the planet. For these cold-adapted alodonts, which we'll call Eriotheres, migrating south would present an escape from the fierce competition of the mainland, prompting at least one species to cross the frozen seaway to Crescentia. By the time they arrive, almost all the large xenodonts will have died out, so they'll face very little competition as they move into the island's megafaunal niches. And once the Ice Age ends, they'll become stranded on Crescentia as the sea ice melts, leaving them to thrive in allopatric isolation just as the notiforms and xenodonts did before them, undergoing their own radiation.
Oh, it was Argentina and the United Kingdom. It's owned by the UK, but it's near Argentina. Yes, that was the island. Shout outs to, see, this is why I love my audience. You guys are actually like, you guys are a smart, sophisticated crew. You know, you guys are like, able to do have these type of conversations. You can't just have these conversations with anybody, and not every YouTuber is gonna just know that type of stuff. So also shout outs to me. I don't think I get enough credit for doing the little things, reading, sometimes pronouncing the words that you guys put on the screen correctly. At times I do pronounce things right every once in a while. Shout outs to me.
Over the coming tens of millions of years as Crescentia continues to slowly drift south. But Crescentia will be only one of thousands of islands scattered across.
Bro, who made this?
The ocean.
Is this
many of which will be too...
Okay, I don't want to call you dumb, but that's the artist's name. Dum. This is an incredible piece of art right here that I'm looking at, people. We're gonna get stronger islands, so everyone lock in. Oh, stranger, my bad. I told you, every once in a while I'll say it correctly. Not every single time. We're getting stranger islands. Let's lock in, everybody. Lock in. Also, once again, this image, incredible. If you are an artist or person who knows how to do art out there, I love stuff like this. Send me art sometimes. Links all on the channel. You know where to... I believe in you guys. You can just send me links. You'll find me. You search on the internet long enough, I'm sure you'll find me.
Crescentia will be only one of thousands of islands scattered across the ocean, many of which will be too small and remote to be reached by crossing sea ice or land bridges, and for which...
Hold on. Does that look like a little face to you guys as well? Like, this is like the face, kind of like a little nose, little smile right here. Do y'all see it, or is that just me adding faces to non-living objects? Like, is that just me being weird, or is that like you guys see that too?
Many of which will be too small and remote to be reached by crossing sea ice or land bridges, and for which rafting events will be vanishingly rare. By far the most likely animals to make it to islands like these will be flying and semi-aquatic clades, especially migratory species that are adapted for traveling over long distances.
I said this, the semi-aquatics right here, and the flying ones. We're about to get into the flying ones, aren't we?
The first clade of animals to develop flight were the Opisthophterans.
Yeah.
And once long-ranging species like the Magnopterans evolve, it won't be long before some of them adapt for a seagoing lifestyle.
True.
Soaring over the ocean and snatching acanthopods out of the water, much like seabirds and fishing bats on Earth.
Fishing bats? Have y'all ever seen a fishing bat before? Like, I've never seen a fishing bat a day in my life. I never knew these existed. Everybody, lock in, everybody. We are about to be learning.
For animals like these, remote islands will serve as ideal mating grounds, where they can carry out their courtship and lay their eggs without needing to worry about predators. This degree of safety may even encourage some animals to spend their entire lives here, which may go hand in hand with another development. Flight provides a number of distinct advantages, especially when it comes to dispersal and escaping predators, but it comes at a steep metabolic cost, hugely increasing the amount of food the animal needs to consume and requiring a number of anatomical specializations to be efficient. This means that if a flying animal finds itself in an isolated environment with few predators, then flight may no longer be useful enough to justify its energetic demands, and the species may end up losing its ability to fly altogether. As such, flightlessness is an extremely common evolutionary trend on islands, seen in groups like the elephant birds of Madagascar, kiwis and moa in New Zealand, dodos on Mauritius, and many, many others.
That's crazy. I never even thought about this. This makes so much sense. I never thought about this a day in my life. Like, even, is that even like kind of count with, I know Australia is different, but like, does that kind of count with Australia too? Like with ostriches? Like, I don't know.
Becoming flightless may also allow species to expand into new niches with which flight would be incompatible. Since the majority of seabirds feed on fish, they obviously need to enter the water in order to find and catch their prey. But swimming and flying are very different forms of locomotion, mainly due to the drastic difference in density between water and air. and specializing for moving through one medium will unavoidably decrease the animal's efficiency of moving through the other. This is exemplified by seabirds like the pelagic cormorant, whose short, broad wings help them steer while underwater, but also give them the lowest flying efficiency of any bird species. This trade-off has also shaped the evolution of specialized feeding behaviors. Some flying piscivores, like skimmers and greater bulldog bats, never enter the water but instead fly overhead and snatch up fish that swim near the surface, while others, like gannets and brown pelicans, dive into the water to pursue their prey. For species that specialize for piscivory, the pressure to evolve effective swimming may outweigh the benefits provided by flight, so becoming flightless will allow them to adapt more completely for aquatic life, and has consequently occurred in many seabirds like penguins, great auks, and some varieties of waterfowl.
Okay.
Likewise, many of the island-dwelling magnopterans will no longer...
That's not just a regular duck. That's a waterfowl. All ducks are waterfowls, I'm assuming? That's the assumption I'm going through here. I imagine I'm correct on that one.
Need to worry about evading predators or dispersing to new areas, so they can afford to give up flight entirely to let them more efficiently hunt aquatic prey.
This actually looks like a seal. This actually looks just like a seal already. I like that.
Give up flight entirely to let them more efficiently hunt aquatic prey. This flightlessness may be accompanied by an increase in body size, not only due to insular gigantism, but also because larger sizes increase diving efficiency. This will be complemented by their efficient respiratory system and the internal support provided by their gladius, letting them grow into some of the largest lophostomes on the planet. To support a heavier...
I gotta say, I don't know if you guys respect the imagery on this, but like, first of all, I love all the art in this, but images like this specifically, like, it's so, like, with the blotchiness of it and everything, it's so simple, yet it's so, like, detailed. It gives me, like, such a vibe of being there, but, like, I'm looking at the creatures, but, like, this is how I feel like they would look. Not like how I think I would actually be seeing them in real life, but, like, the feeling. I feel like if I saw the creatures, like this exact creature in real life, and then re-saw this image would give me the feeling that I had when I saw the creature in real life, if that makes sense. If you guys understand, let me know if that makes any sense. I'm probably just yapping because I love to yap, guys. You know this. You've watched the channel before. There's nothing new here.
Grow into some of the largest lophostomes on the planet. To support a heavier body, their wings and canards, having a much greater degree of musculature than the boneless walking legs, may take over the role of locomotion on land as well, letting them awkwardly haul themselves along the ground, unlike most other opisthophorans which fold their wings backward when they land. These wings may shorten into a pair of powerful flippers to provide effective underwater propulsion, while the canards will help them steer and maintain stability, making their style of swimming less like that of wing-propelled divers like penguins and auks, and more similar to that of foot-propelled divers like loons and the extinct Hesperornis.
What the Hesperornis? Okay, guys, what the Hesperornis are you talking about here? This creature looks insane. That's like a feathered bird, but it's like, look at the legs. The legs are all like, that's so crazy to me. Now, I get this is probably more like how it would actually look, you know? But even this, like, seeing this image right here is insane to me. This duck is fully underwater. Like, get out the water, bro. What are you doing? If I'm a fish, okay, if I'm a fish and I'm a sea creature and I see this guy, I'm literally looking at this guy like, what are you doing down here? Like, who do you think you are? Like, is this the life this ain't the life you live, buddy. You need air. Go be with your people. Don't be coming down here with messing up our life, being a underwater duck, bro. Get out of here. That's what I would say.
Along with a more streamlined body, they may evolve valves within their spirit.
A human-sized seabird with teeth. Is that what you're describing to me? Did you just comment a human-sized seabird with teeth? First of all, you thought I'm not recommending you to go to the New Zealand because of that one cricket. I'm telling you right now, do not visit this island specifically. Actually, I should probably just say this whole planet, but I'm be honest, this planet got some nice stuff to it, but it'll be better in that video game we were talking about before. Guys, lock in. Go ahead and create the video game. I only take like 40% of the profits. Just give me 40%. Take the idea, run with it. Put my name in the little special thanks to this guy for bringing up the idea on a live stream, dated 9/12/2025. You already know. Timestamp that. I came up with the idea. You guys created it. Shout outs to both of us though. It was a collaborative effort. Me and the person who's eventually going to create the game that I just recommended.
To let them hold their breath while underwater. And the regional endothermy that lets their wing muscles function optimally will also allow them to maintain a stable body temperature in cold water, which will be of great benefit once the Ice Age arrives, and will give them an advantage in...
Hesperornis lived around the same time as T-Rex. Whoa. Imagine going back in time. You see a T-Rex, you're running away from the T-Rex, right? Okay, here's the scenario. Bro just told me this was in the middle of the T-Rex time, so that just made me... I gotta yap for a second. You are in prehistoric time. You got a time machine, you land in prehistoric times, okay? You see a T-Rex, you run from that thing. You're like, whoa, this T-Rex is crazy. Let me get out of here. Into the water. Oh my gosh, I'm safe. I'm headed towards the water. You see a human-sized bird with teeth coming at you. You go underwater, it's diving in there too. It's a swimmer. It's a fast swimmer. Now all of a sudden, it's hitting moves. You over here like, whoa, what the? I guess I'm just dead, right? I guess that's just my life right there. I guess that's just how I end, thanks to this human-sized bird with teeth that can swim. Once again, human-sized swimming bird with teeth. There you go. That's the video. Not really, but you know what I mean, guys. It's actually getting insane there.
Competing with other semi-aquatic clays like the Actopheres.
Oh, trust me. It's far from the worst thing in the sea. I know! That's the crazy part. This ain't even the worst thing in the sea. That's just in my mind canon. Imagine you just running away from the T-Rex. You see that thing first. It's freaking you out. But then you got to realize, wait, why am I going to the water? This is probably the least safe place to be in the prehistoric times. Long story short, wasn't no place safe for us. We live in the best timeline currently, where we became humans after all the dinosaurs were already extinct. For the most part, like shout outs to our ancestor who was like some type of small little rat creature just surviving, Shout outs to the first mammal just out there just surviving, living life, being a small rodent type creature probably. Shout outs to the very first mammal. You the OG, you did it all. You walked so I could run today. Look at us now, OG. You the OG for real. Look at us now. We got internet and stuff, baby. We good. You started all this. I want you to know, if you're watching this from up above, prehistoric mammal creature that, made the first thing that became humans, I appreciate you. We would live underground. Yeah. Shout outs to underground.
Island habitats. Opisthophora and clay. These creatures, which we'll call Diptopterids, will be just one of many Opisthophora and clades that independently become flightless in response to their secluded island habitats. And once they're sufficiently adapted for a semi-aquatic lifestyle, they'll be able to swim across the sea to reach other islands or even the coasts of the mainland, coming ashore to breed and to lay their eggs. However, the evolution of the Diptopterids will be shortly followed by the appearance of the Pleuropterans, which, having also evolved flight, will share the same long-distance capabilities as the...
I forgot how much I like these things. This is such a great design. And also, once again, shout outs to this guy's audience, because look at this. Look at this. They're sending him this stuff.
Or even the coasts of the mainland.
Look at this animation right now. This is incredible animation. I'm telling you. Like, this would be some, like, you worked very hard to get this animation. Color me impressed, people. I am impressed by the artistry that it takes to make this on your computer. I can't do it. 3D animation, yeah, it's, wait, you don't like it? Like Pixar, yeah.
Or to breed and to lay their eggs.
Oh,
however, the evolution.
Okay. I thought you said it was shit, but you was like 3D animation and shit, like Pixar. That makes me. I get it now. I get it.
The Diptopterids will be shortly followed by the appearance of the Pleuropterans, which, having also evolved flight, will share the same long-distance capabilities as the Opisthophterans, and so will likewise be poised to spread across the planet and find their way to habitats that are unreachable for other clades. Since the Opisthophterans evolved over 60 million...
Guys, look at the detail in this image, though. Like, some of these things really just pop. Look at the detail in this one specifically, and then the island behind it and the water. I'm sorry. Like this one, I actually really like this one. I enjoyed this art style, you know?
In years before the Pleuropterans, they'll have had a head start in colonizing most islands, but a perfect opportunity for the Pleuropterans may arise with one particular geological development.
Okay.
Over millions of years, underwater volcanic activity fueled by hotspots on the planet's mantle can produce plumes of rock large enough to emerge above the ocean's surface, effectively creating a brand new island or even chains of islands as the crust slowly drifts over the top of the hotspot. On Earth, islands like Iceland and Hawaii were formed through this process, and on our alien planet, one such hotspot may occur in a remote region of the ocean, resulting in the formation of an archipelago that we'll call Pyronesia. When they first form, these islands will be nothing but barren outcrops of solid rock, completely devoid of any native species, but even habitats as desolate as this will still attract species to colonize them.
True.
However, as this archipelago will be over 4,000 kilometers from the nearest coast, it will be almost impossible to...
Wait, is this gonna be like the furthest island away from the mainlands so far that we've seen? This is crazy. Pay attention. This is gonna get weird. Are these your favorite islands? Yeah. Hey, I think
reach with passive dispersal mechanisms like rafting.
I can see why.
So flying animals will once again be the most likely organisms to find their way here, including not only
don't spoil it for us. Don't spoil it for us.
The Opisthophterans, but also the newly evolved Pleuropterans. Like the ancestors of the Diptopterids, the flying species that arrive on Pyronesia will likely be migratory acanthivores that come to the islands to feed and lay their eggs away from the perils of the mainland.
Okay.
As they migrate to the archipelago, they may unwittingly bring other clades with them, such as phoretic malacoforms clinging to their skin and the diaspores of plants adapted for animal-assisted dispersal like the chromatophytes. The populations that these species establish will slowly transform the archipelago into a stable habitat through a process called ecological succession, the progressive change in the structure and composition of an ecosystem over time. Succession can be divided into primary succession.
So, like, first the plants take over, and then that causes the area to change, obviously creating plant life. Probably like the grass and everything forms first, which immediately turns it from a barren wasteland to at least a place that has a lot of grass. Then I imagine like some trees or like bigger plants start to form, which attracts smaller bugs and creatures, which attracts probably birds and other creatures that want those smaller creatures, which attracts slightly bigger ones, which would eventually, change. Also, like when roots grow and everything, it probably changes the look of the environment as well. So yeah, I think I get this now. The alien bugs.
In which an ecosystem forms in a brand new habitat with no pre-existing species, and secondary succession, where the ecosystem recovers after an ecological disturbance.
Oh.
Pyronesia will be a perfect example of the former, as the landscape will initially consist of nothing but newly exposed rock. The first stage of succession is initiated by pioneer species, usually small plants, lichens, and fungi that are hardy enough to grow.
Guys, I'm no genius here, but did I not just call this Like, am I not like at least kind of a genius, a little smart, kind of smarter than your average bear? I don't know.
Grow on
Give me
bare
a little
rock,
credit here.
which, assisted by erosion from the wind, waves, and rain, will start to break down the rock into mineral-rich soil.
Okay.
In the case of Pyronesia, the pioneer species may include some of the chromatophytes, which, being epiphytes, are already adapted for growing in the absence of soil, and without any towering altophytes around them to block out sunlight, they'll have a much easier time growing on these islands than in the rainforest, forming a carpet of multicolored filaments along the ground. These pioneer species will pave the way for intermediate species like some of the other brachyphyte clades and various caulophytes, which will further contribute to soil formation.
Holy crap, what is this? Is this like a AI image? Is this like a 3D AI? Like, is this 3D generator, or is this like a fully AI image? Either way, this is crazy. This is actually very impressive. I was not expecting to see freaking real life stalks of grain here on this island. What is this? This is incredible.
Until it ultimately becomes suitable for trees to take root. In most ecosystems across this planet, the niches of trees are filled by the xylophytes, but with the exception of the coelophytes, these plants aren't well suited for long-distance dispersal, as their diaspores are much smaller and more prone to desiccation than plants like the chromatophytes, making them comparatively...
It's 3D modeling. You hate AI images? No, I hope it's not like an AI image as well. You guys are saying it's not an AI image, it's just 3D modeling. Good. I like when these are all made by actual people. I enjoy that more. Even if it was AI, though, I will say that was probably, if it would have been one of the most impressive AI things I've seen. But I don't find a lot of the AI to be impressive at all. So the bar is not super high. I am happy this was made by humans, though. We need actual human creativity to keep making art, because that's what art is, ladies and gentlemen. Art is like just part of like the human creativity. You know, things are beautiful in nature, but it takes a human mind to see it as art or be like artistically inspired by it. You know, that's just part of being a human. It's being aware and being able to create art.
Relatively unlikely to survive a trip all the way across the ocean. This means that the xylophytes may not have much of a presence on Pyronesia, providing an opportunity for other plants on the archipelago to move into their niches. The xylophyte's signature adaptation is their layer of rigid tissues that gives them the structural support to grow enormously tall trunks to reach upward for light. But although this has allowed them to become the dominant form of tree across the planet, it's unlikely to be a unique adaptation. Even on Earth, plants that we would recognize as trees have independently evolved across many clades, like for example how palm trees are actually more closely related to grasses than to conifer trees.
Really?
Similarly, on our alien planet, even though the xylophytes are the most widespread group of tree-like plants, there are likely to be many other plants that have convergently evolved tough, inflexible stems for greater support. And on Pyronesia, with very few xylophyte species to compete with, one such clade may now be able to grow into the archipelago's dominant large flora, a clade of plants that we'll call nothodendrons. And throughout the process of succession, new niches will also be opened for animals as well, which may incentivize the migratory opisthophorans and pleuropterans to take up permanent residence here and to integrate with the local ecology. And with no other...
Wait, why do they have these little spiky things here? Are these like for pollination? Like, are they gonna like shoot out when these things are like ready to pollinate? Like, do they just like shoot out of them and just fall to the ground and like help replant? Because I ain't gonna lie, that'd be pretty cool. Wait, are you saying Elisa's savant mine? Am I a savant? Probably, you know, that's just me. I'm like, get me on a piano, I'm a savant. Get me on the drums, I'm a savant. Get me in a raps, I'm a savant. Get me in a battle, okay. That's what a real person could do right there. I could be a rapper if I want. See, I would be a rapper, but you know what? We only got 6 minutes left. My rap would immediately make this 40
to be open
minutes.
For animals as well, which may incentivize the migratory opisthophorans and pleuropterans to take up permanent residence here and to integrate with the local ecology. and with no other diplostomes or osteopods on the islands, the conditions will be ideal for both clades to undergo an adaptive radiation to spread into every niche the islands have to offer. Unlike the ancestors of the Diptopterids, the Opisthophorans on these islands will still need to contend with a considerable amount of competition and predation from the Pleuropterans, and so they may still retain their flight to help them escape danger. Due to their limited size and lack of a true skeleton, they won't be able to effectively compete for the niches of apex predators and megafaunal herbivores, and so will be relegated to the niches of malacivores, scavengers, and even frugivores and nectarovores, convergently evolving to fill similar niches to the Picopterans and Leptopterans on the mainland. On the other hand, the Pleuropterans will be at the top of the food chain, so once they begin adapting for ground-level niches, their flight may be more of a hindrance than an asset, with their wings restricting their movement through the dense groves of nothodendrons. But if they become flightless, the middle two pairs of legs and the wing membrane they support can shrink so as to not get in the way of the forelimbs and hind limbs, which will be the only legs involved in locomotion, making these forms the only quadrupedal osteopods to evolve thus far, and thus giving them some of the most energy-efficient locomotion of any land animal.
I see this thing just walking around like he's just wearing like he's just walking around here like he's just wearing his pajamas or something. You know, just like, it's the middle of the night, gotta go to the bathroom, got a blanket wrapped around me or something like that. Like, bro, what are you doing? It looks like he's about to go into the fridge in the middle of the night. You still got the blanket wrapped around him.
In reference to the vestiges of the wing membrane connecting their legs, let's call these animals Chlamypterans. No longer constrained by the demands of flight, these Chlamypterans will now be free to expand into new niches that they would otherwise be precluded from. As mentioned in Part 9, leaves are difficult to digest and don't offer enough nutrition for folivores to maintain a very active lifestyle.
Hey, and once again, shoutouts to pandas for almost, if it weren't for human intervention, I'm pretty sure these things would have died because all they like to do is eat bamboo, which is not nutritionally enough to sustain them. But they're also super lazy and they refuse to get other things, and now you gotta have them in zoos, apparently. Like, now these things, like, they never just got smart enough to eat other things. Like, at this point, I think it'd be better for the species to just start eating people. I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I know you guys want to. I know you're like, whoa, when is he going to be wrong about something so I can correct him? It's like he's never wrong. Oh my gosh. Yeah, a perfect 100 for 100.
You know? Making them a poor food source for flying animals. But once these Theropterans become flightless, they won't need to maintain such a high energy diet and will now be better able to explore.
Interesting. Is this like a art over like a real image at the is this like the created art in the foreground and then like underneath it is like a real image of the ground? I like this one. This is interesting. Like, can somebody explain if this is like, or if this was also like made? Because the art in this right here look a lot different than here. Yeah, probably. Okay, that makes sense.
The niches of large herbivores, similar to how the majority of ratite species took up herbivory after they gave up flight. To cope with a constant input of tough, nutrient-poor foliage, these Theropterans may evolve an expanded, complex foregut like many of the megafaunal clades on the mainland, and an elongated cephalothorax to browse on the leaves of the nothodendron.
Now it's just a giraffe. It looks like an image drawn on top of, yeah. It does. It does kind of look like a real picture with the actual image drawn on top of it. But we're just looking at giraffes now, people. This is just their version of the giraffe. Also, these plants, absolutely insane. I like these. I something about this plant. I like this plant, but this giraffe creature is actually insane.
In compliance with Foster's rule, their body size may be contingent on the availability of food on their home island, which, while not enough to let them grow to sizes comparable to mainland megafauna like the titanopods, will still let these animals, which we'll call hypsirynchids, evolve into some of the largest animals on Pyronesia. And with clades like these filling the herbivorous niches, other varieties of Chlamypterans may subsequently adapt to prey on them. Having evolved from the same flying ancestors as the hypsirynchids, they'll inherit the same long-legged gait, chasing down their prey in a sort of bounding gallop. Their pedipalps, used by their ancestors to snatch acanthopods out of the water, may evolve scythe-like claws to kill and dismember their prey, recalling large island-dwelling predators like the giant marabou stork and the enormous pterosaur Hatzegopteryx. With the evolution of these predators, which we'll call temnorhynchids, all of the major niches on the Pyrenesian ecosystems will be filled, and the process of succession will reach a point of equilibrium, culminating in what's sometimes called a climax or steady-state community. Processes like these will occur on each and every one of the innumerable islands on this planet, each one independently cultivating its own unique assemblage of species and ecosystems, with the few we've described here serving to illustrate a small selection of noteworthy island-dwelling clades to evolve throughout the planet's history up to about 20 million years or so after the Ice Age comes to an end. But away from isolated habitats like these, there are other innovations quietly taking place across the world at large that deserve special attention. In the next episode, we'll return to the mainland to take a closer look at the evolution of sociality and cooperative behaviors.
Oh, hold on. That's actually going to be a really good video. I ain't gonna lie.
Thanks to all the artists on Discord who contributed artwork for this episode.
Once again, shout outs to all the artists. I have so much love and respect for all the art that I see in these videos. Shout outs to Biblaridion, obviously, first and foremost. He's the guy that gets it done. He does this. He's got the audience. I support him. Make sure you guys all subscribe to him. But the artists themselves do deserve some praise as well. They're really adding an extra dimension to these videos by just providing their artwork, and it's actually so incredible.
Give me an enormous amount of time and effort when making these videos, while simultaneously making them look a hell of a lot better in the process.
Exactly.
Links to the main server and the Alien Biospheres fan server in the description. And once again, a massive thanks to all the patrons, whose continued support makes videos like these possible. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
The tree of life is looking very complicated now. Yeah, that's true. It's a complicated life cycle here, you know? We're living in the more complicated reality. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be ending this stream in a moment here. I think we had a pretty good time, and for anybody who wanted to see more Harry Mack, I'm sorry. Tomorrow, okay? We'll do something tomorrow for some Harry Mack. It'll either be a live or recorded. Let me do this. How about that? I just want the images to stay showing this whole time here. But yeah, guys, if you've made it this far into the video, how did you like this live stream? It's the real question, you know? How did you like being a part of the live stream? You know, if you're watching this after it's already been re-edited and put out for this specific section, imagine this is like 2 videos. This part might get cut out. Who knows? But, you know, how did you like the recorded version of this? Comment down below. Live people, how did you feel about the live video, you know? Yeah, next episode, social behaviors. It's going to be incredible. Shout outs to you, Townsend Coleman? Townsend Coleman? I may be able to pronounce your name on the next live stream. That I won't promise you, but I believe in myself, and you believe in me, and I believe in me, and that's the most important thing. Yeah, and also TTYL, you know, it's like talk to you later right there. I know that one. I'm a millennial, as they say. But yeah, guys, I had a lot of fun with this one. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, if you made it this far into the video, I do want to tell you, thank you. I love you. Bye.